Let's go to Queensland now, where this week the State Treasurer in Queensland, Cameron Dick, handed down Labor's, you got to say big spending, I'd almost say big bribing pre-election budget, unapologetically plunging Queensland into a $2.6 billion deficit. Have a listen to the Treasurer.
This budget is about doing what matters for Queensland now through cost of living relief, while building the Queensland we all deserve in the future.
He's kidding, surely. They're giving Queenslanders $1,300 off their power bill. Nice if you're a Queenslander. 20% off your registration in your car. 50-cent public transport fares. $200 sports vouchers for every child. I wonder who gets lumped with the bill for all of this stuff. Well, I can tell you, Queensland taxpayers. Joining me now is the Executive Director at the Australian Institute of Progress, Graham Young. Graham, do you think they've factored in, by handing down this budget, that you're suddenly going to get swamped from people from Victoria and New South Wales moving to Queensland because it's such a good deal?
There are other reasons to move from Victoria I can think of, Steve, than to come up here for our budget. I don't think they're thinking beyond the next 4 months because we've got a state election then. They're throwing money around like the proverbial drunken sailors. They got very lucky with coal royalties. They have what I call the smash and grab Tats Lotto. $15 billion worth of royalties came in last year. It's only $10 billion this year. I mean, you're talking about a budget of around $70 billion. It's huge numbers. And the Treasurer knocked the coal companies over the head, increased coal royalties up to level of 40%. And bear in mind that the next most expensive is in New South Wales, about 10%. So they've taken that money, they've thrown it around, and we're still going to end up with $172 billion worth of debt. Nothing to show for it. I wouldn't be leaving Victoria for this budget, Steve, or New South Wales if I were you.
Graham, anyone else see the rich irony in the fact that this is all possible because of coal?
Well, I'm not sure whether anyone else did. I think the government, they want to have it always. And part of the debt is obviously that we're spending up big on the energy transition, and we're exporting a lot of this coal overseas to build the wind farms and the solar farms of the future. No, the Treasurer seems quite shameless in taking coal money with one hand and slamming the coal industry with the other.
David Crisafulli, the opposition leader, seems to have woken up to the fact that there may be votes in not building the world's biggest hydroelectric project. They've actually vowed that they won't go ahead with that. That is, designed to phase out coal-fired generators. Do you think that that is a popular electoral decision by the opposition?
I think it's probably very popular in the area where houses were being resumed for the dam, but I think you're making an assumption that Labor would have ever built that dam. You know, we're talking about it would have been the largest pumped hydro scheme in the world, in the continent that has the least water, apart from Antarctica, in the world. So, you know, the opposition's scrapping it because they don't think it's going to go ahead. They're talking about smaller pumped hydro schemes. But Steve, you said that it was supposed to replace coal. Nothing can replace dispatchable energy. These pumped hydro schemes, they need something else to produce the energy for them to store it. And there's a good question as to whether you can ever make any money out of these pumped hydro schemes as batteries, because they lose 30% of the energy coming and going. But if we don't have those and they do get rid of the coal-fired power stations, we're in a heap of trouble. So I think there's a bit of work to be done if the opposition become the government to get them to face up to the problems of this energy transition which they've signed on to. And between you and me and the rest of the continent, I think nuclear is probably the answer. It's a lot easier to build than these pumped hydro schemes, doesn't take up as much space and produces its own electricity.
We only need, Graham, don't you, to look at Malcolm Turnbull's Snowy Hydro and the dramas that have happened there.
Absolutely, yes. that was a thought bubble, and I think the Barumba Dam was a thought bubble. But to give Malcolm his due, even on revised costings, Snowy Hydro will be about the same price as Barumba is on the costings at the moment before the CFMEU have put their loading on it. And it will produce 1 gigawatt of power for 350 hours, I think it is, whereas the dam up north will only do that for about 48 hours. So it's not value for money, even when you stack it up against Malcolm Turnbull's brain explosion.
How convinced are you that the Miles government / ex-Palaszczuk government were actually ever going to build that thing?
Not at all, Steve. The problem with the Labor government here, and I think it's Labor governments around the country, is that they put out media releases saying this is what we're going to do and then assume the work's all been done. There's too much politics and not enough engineering in most of what we're talking about in the power schemes, but it also has a flow-on effect. We have a housing crisis, and that's immediate. And part of the problem with the housing crisis is the cost of construction. And that cost is being driven sky high by all these state governments going out, borrowing billions of dollars to spend on not just the energy transition, but on various bits of infrastructure, pumped hydro, etc., at a higher price for the materials and the people working on it than you and I can afford to spend in our houses. It's a major contributor, along with immigration, to the fact that young Australians, young Queenslanders, can't get themselves into a house. And I see in the paper today that Brisbane, Sydney and Melbourne are amongst the 13 least affordable cities in the whole world. It's absurd.
Yes, it is, and I raised that at the beginning of the program. We've got to have a debate about immigration. Graham Young, thank you very much for helping us out tonight. I appreciate it.